trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the Good Charlotte album, The Young and the Hopeless. Now, this is basically their second album, and after their self-titled album from 2000, Good Charlotte, this is kind of the one that broke them into the mainstream. It was definitely an MTV staple. At least 3 of those singles charted pretty well, were everyday things for things like Total Request Live and probably things on like VH1 and those type channels. I would definitely have to say it seemed like it was a staple amongst that. And I definitely remember hearing at least the anthem and Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous, but probably Girls and Boys also. I just would have to say there just were 3 really kind of riotous singles that were just everyday life around this time 20 years ago. This came out in late 2002, but it wound up cresting quite far throughout 2003 and even into 2004. I honestly want to say I was looking up some information, and it had said that it was on the end of the year Billboard charts for highest selling albums of the year for 2003 and 2004. So that's pretty good that this album had quite a bit of life in it throughout like the subsequent 2 years that this project was supported. So yeah, this was definitely a smash hit, went almost quadruple platinum, went at least triple platinum, and has the hits to back it up. But it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's a classic album. It definitely is an effectual project that has like its waves that it created, but it's not quite to the point where it's like a 5-star kind of Alice in Chains sized album or something like that. It's definitely relevant and it has some good stuff, but it's not quite a classic. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like, I feel like this project gave Blink-182 some competition. Kind of like, pop punk was definitely very popular in the early 2000s. It was definitely something between folks like Sum 41, Blink-182, Good Charlotte. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones. Like, you can, yeah, I would say like Alien Ant Farm and Papa Roach in some cases, just stuff like that that kind of wound up having that kind of trajectory and stuff. It was definitely a good time to be a punk and that type of stuff, I would have to say. I know there's a couple other ones, I'm just not thinking of them at the moment, but it was a good run around this time, and definitely songs like The Anthem and Lifestyles were definitely 2 hit songs that were just like punk life around 20 years ago and that type of stuff. So it's pretty dope, I would definitely have to say. But alright, so I'll go ahead and talk about the singles. So the first single is Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Like I said, this was an MTV staple. This had an instantly recognizable chorus. This is, to this day, this is Good Charlotte's highest charting song. It's just instantly recognizable and probably their most popular song, I would almost have to say. Now, it's not their best song in my opinion, but I just say that because they have other good hits, but it's definitely easily a #1 rock song for a good while, and something that just kind of has that definitive kind of vibe. To me, it kind of felt like a party song, not quite a club song, something like that would be out in a social outing, but just more kind of house party, kind of kick it with your pals kind of thing, just kind of backyard kind of vibes, easy kind of, drink session, barbecue type stuff. Just a good song to kind of get crunk to in that sort of way. This would definitely have to say is appreciative. I mean, the MTV success that it saw was appreciated, and it definitely is a hit song. The second single was The Anthem, and this showcased that the album had life into it past like the first initial months of it coming out, because this was a single released like 4 or 5 months later in 2003. Another instantly recognizable chorus. Basically goes neck and neck with the Lifestyles song. I would definitely have to say both of these just have instant kind of earworm kind of hooks, and they just sound like pop punk anthems for that particular point in time. Like, don't want to be just like you, that type of stuff. I mean, it's just that's kind of how that, it really kind of, this one is a little bit, this kind of reminds me of a song I would listen to that I would hear on the radio, like just waking up, you turn on the radio and you hear this song on, and it's like, okay, I've got to get started with my day. I'm going to have some orange juice, go out in a couple hours, 40 minutes, go grab some beer, that type stuff. get in your truck, get in your whip, and go about your day and that type of stuff. It's just a great song to wake up to. It has a good kind of summery and spring kind of energy. This is a summer song with rock that I definitely enjoy. This is an easy, definitely feels like an anthem, especially for pop and punk and that type stuff. Pop punk, not so much pop, but punk. It can be played as like a pop song, I would almost say. It's just really kind of like what MGK is right now, I would have to say. Just a great song. Girls and Boys is kind of the relationship song on here. This is where it switches it up. And to me, it just felt like a song you'd listen to when making a trek to your girlfriend's house, something like that. Just kind of like, hey, I'm going to see my girlfriend today, kick it with her, that type stuff. Pretty intricate. Just I like I like the vibes that this song kind of went off with. And basically is chorus number 3. That's an instant earworm and that type of stuff. All of these, like I said, were MTV staples, but this is just an easy one that's definitive, it's memorable, and it has like that energy of just lastability. These were songs that were just all over the radio, 02, 03, 04, and possibly a few years after that. These are just ones that consistently stand the test of time, and just good vibes about it. Good relationship song, good kind of visiting bay, that type of stuff. Just easy, kind of simple. But I would also have to say that Hold On, this is the 4th single. They did have some other ones that they attempted. 4th single, Hold On, which is basically an anti-suicide song. I wasn't too big a fan of this song. I mean, it really kind of switches. This is not in like a party, or it's not really in like an up tempo or kind of get crunk kind of attitude as much as like actually, suicide prevention and trying to reach out and say, hey, don't be so hard on yourself type thing. I mean, I can see the song being necessary, but I can't think of too many moments where I would actively listen to the song. So that's kind of the situation there. And then The Young and the Hopeless, which was also tied with Hold On, where they released it as a dual single. But The Young and the Hopeless is basically like a lighter sense of like uh, lifestyles of the rich and the famous, not quite as attractive or as hooky or earwormish as that one. It's kind of like a B-side kind of party single, The Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous, where it's kind of like a B- grade party single. It's probably like my second least favorite single, but it stands up. It could be like a 3.5. Like if I like the first 3 singles, I almost like this one entirely as a 4th, but it is the energy of it is just not quite as hooky. They kind of ran out of steam a little bit, but I like the attempt. But Hold On is probably the more popular song than The Young and the Hopeless, but I like The Young and the Hopeless more, but the energy is just somewhat kind of flaccid compared to the first 3 singles. So that's just kind of the situation, but it's decent. So that leads to the rest of the project, and I would just have to say, unfortunately, there's not enough songs on this project that carry the energy of like the 1-2 punch, the excellent 1-2, or the excellent 1-2-3 punch of the anthem, Lifestyles, and Girls and Boys. I spent quite a bit looking on this project for something that could carry that energy and be like another nice hot house, another nice house party song, another nice song to get turned up to and turn the volume knob up all the way and drive around to, have a few beers to, get crunk, flirt a little bit, that type of stuff. But I would say that there are some songs like Riot Girl, Moving On, and Wondering that kind of somewhat do it, but they just do not have quite the affluence as well as that really needs to be. And even The Young and the Hopeless, the title track single that I talked about, the energy is just very kind of tied down. I think that's the reason why this was not a higher multi-platinum album, because triple platinum is good, but for the 2000s, when you look at an album like Meteora by Linkin Park, or Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water by Limp Bizkit, that went 7 times platinum. And like Hybrid Theory went diamond, and like Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause went like 8 times platinum. Actually, I think that one went diamond also. So there were some rock albums, new metal, punk, that type of stuff that went really high around this time, and that's actually pretty light. I mean, I definitely have to applaud like the 1-2-3 punch that the first 3 singles have, because all of these are like really hooky, really earworm and excellent, but it just kind of stops short. That's kind of the thing. I mean, the rest of the party songs on this project really kind of have like a severe slash of energy compared to the singles, And I think it's pretty noticeable that like songs like Wondering and like Moving On, The Day That I Die, and like Riot Girl just don't compare in terms of like the velocity, but they are good songs. I'm definitely going to include them on songs that I recommend. And then there's also like a lot of kind of differential kind of moodiness that goes along with it, where it just has like a continual leftover energy from the vibes of like Hold On, where I felt like Say Anything and Emotionless also kind of felt that way also, where they kind of had the same kind of gloomy, but just kind of in a little bit like all just kind of softcore rock kind of vibe as far as Hold On. So, or if you like that kind of vibe, you actually get more essences of that song, but they actually hold up to the Hold On territory better than the other songs I mentioned hold up to like the Anthem and Lifestyles, which is really too bad. I felt like The Story of My Old Man was kind of a pointless song. I guess, kind of a tribute to fathers that kind of are a certain kind of way, but it didn't seem too much of a point to add attention to that. And My Bloody Valentine, I almost liked. I would have liked if the melodies and the singing had been better. I felt like that had the making of what could have been a better song, but I couldn't really get into how the singing was just not melodic enough compared to songs like Lifestyles and the Anthem and Girls and Boys. I don't know. It kind of feels like they were kind of sleepwalking through some of this project, where it just felt like it was more about like the energy of like, just kind of being content, despite the fact that this is an emo and punk project. It seemed like it kind of was at like an identity crisis of trying to capture like the energy that it wanted to channel. And this is kind of the thing where it's kind of like it just doesn't have like tabs on like how it wants to feel. And that kind of creates like a lot of insecurity and shakiness that's just not really that fun to listen to. I mean, when they do it in the singles, it definitely is. But when it's kind of questionable and things are kind of insecure, it's not quite as fun. So this is kind of something there. I definitely feel like the singles for the most part nail it, but it just kind of is very like jittery. It's just kind of the situation. There's a lot of songs on here where I feel like, why did you make a song like this when you could have made like another song with the fury of Lifestyles and the Anthem and had some more earworms that could have been really around? But it just feels like there's just a lot of patchiness and like the moodiness. This is very much an emo project, but it's just kind of the concept where it just is kind of shaky in the sense that they kind of waste their energy kind of being depressed when they could have that energy and just kind of do like what MGK does, where he channels it and uses that energy to have a good time, but they don't quite really do that. So I'll go ahead and list the songs for you that I recommend out of 13. So the 7 songs are the Anthem, Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous, Girls and Boys, Wondering, The Young and the Hopeless, Riot Girl, and Moving On. Now, I also want to talk about Wondering, because this really has some good energy about it. Just a nice kind of pseudo relationship song, also kind of similar to Girls and Boys, where it kind of has similar vibes to that. This is kind of like a heartthrob album too, where it can kind of have some of that in there. Like Riot Girl, Girls and Boys, and Wondering have some of that. So there is some degree of romance in this project, but obviously I did want a lot more cutting loose kind of type moments. They're just very kept at a minimum, which is too bad, because it just feels like the briefness of the project with the more, it just feels like there's more songs in kind of the Hold On kind of angle than more so than anything else. And it's too bad, because the energy that they have when they do nail it is actually, I really feel like these guys could have truly been around. Even they could have been a real face of rock and punk, especially for a long time to come, if they had just had more songs like the Anthem and Lifestyles and Girls and Boys. But that's kind of the situation. So me liking 7 out of 13. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album a 6.5 out of 10. I feel like 6.5 is pretty solid. 7 out of 13 is a little bit more than half. I just would feel like that's solid enough to really say. I mean, there are songs on here that I appreciate and would definitely kind of say there are some songs on here I appreciate and do have that kind of correct kind of energy, but I really just feel like the best moments are just, like I said, kept to a minimum and very fleeting, which is too bad, because I would have definitely liked some follow-up energy to kind of this is not an album that's going to last the whole night. And that's kind of the concept. It's a lot more in like Minuteman territory and just short term and EP quality territory, more so than actually saying that this goes the whole night and then some. So that's just kind of the situation. But the social score I will definitely give an 8.5 out of 10, because I feel like 5 singles, 3 of which really, were the talk of the town in rock music for like 2 years after the album came out. That's extremely solid. And I feel like the Young and the Hopeless at least made the attempt. They at least put out the single as opposed to not putting it out. But I just feel like, honestly, some folks could say, well, I like Hold On, blah, blah, blah. It should be a single. But yeah, it's just kind of, the energy kind of quelled. That's kind of what I felt like with it. So, but yeah, it did have 5 singles, and a lot of them did make a lot of noise, and it carried popularity. So just understand that if you do support like the rest of the kind of more uh, thoughtful kind of moments, that there's that. So, but yeah, so the future, like the last time Good Charlotte's been around that I looked up was in 2018. I would definitely like these guys to come back. I want to see if like their follow-up albums had more popularity. I do want to review like their year 2000 and 2004 projects to see their hit potential. Just hoping that this was not the sheer magnum opus of what they did. I would definitely like for them to have more hits and for them to be as catchy as the singles that were MTV staples back in the day, I would definitely have to say. So hopefully that is the case. But yeah, folks, pretty decent. Definitely above average that this project gave me in terms of vibes.